Chosen one, begin where sound becomes shape, at the seam between your breath and your bones. Before any eyes find you, before anyone speaks your name, the room is already learning from the way you inhabit it. Desire does not descend on you like weather from a distant sky. It rises like ground heat from a well-tended earth. Feminine women find you so desirable when they see you because they are not encountering a man performing fire. They are encountering a man who has become hearth. Your sexual energy is not a flare shot upward to make a moment notice. It is radiant heating, woven beneath the floorboards of your life, warming everything quietly from below. She steps into that warmth and only later realizes why her shoulders dropped, why her voice found a lower, truer register, why the noise inside her thinned to a tone she could finally trust. Stand here and let the altar of your posture preach, the angle of your chin that neither defies nor pleads, the way your feet take full custody of the ground, the ease in your hands that signals no hunger for grabbing. These are not tricks. They are translations. They tell the body across from you, in a language older than speech, that your power is domesticated by reverence. Reverence is what turns strength into shelter. It is why her nervous system leans toward you before her mind has permission to agree. She is not magnetized by decoration. She is magnetized by governance. You keep your heat where it can bless. You hold your light where it can reveal rather than interrogate. The eye finds you not because you ask to be found, but because coherence is easier to look at than chaos. There is a music to you that does not need instruments. Call it the room tone of your soul. It is the subtle frequency that announces you have made vows in private that you intend to keep in public. To speak truth at a human volume. To wait when waiting will make the moment honest. To move when movement will make the love real. Women hear that frequency in their bodies. They feel the way you treat attention as sacrament rather than currency. How you do not hawk your gaze in every direction looking for a bid. How you let it rest where meaning lives and pass calmly where meaning does not. This is why she feels seen and not shopped. This is why desire in your field arrives as permission rather than pressure. Permission is the most erotic fragrance a room can wear. Consider the geometry you keep. Space is not emptiness around you. It is a designed courtyard where two sovereignties can meet without conquest. You do not collapse distance to coerce closeness, nor do you weaponize distance to hoard power. You allow the interval to be intelligible, a measurable span that says, I honor the door and the one who chooses whether to cross it. This is what her eyes recognize before her thoughts can catch up. A threshold held by a guardian who does not call himself king. She steps an inch forward because your stillness is not a dare. It is a welcome. She meets your gaze because your gaze does not inventory. It intercedes. She stays longer than she planned because staying is not taxed here by the toll booth of performance. Your sexual energy is not separate from your prayer. It is your prayer incarnate. The body, aligned to the soul's clean intent, becomes a sanctuary where hunger kneels before holiness. All of this is felt in microsecond exchanges, the humility that refuses to make humor a weapon, the confidence that lets silence do some of the talking, the discipline that keeps curiosity from trespass. She will later tell herself that you were attractive, and that will be true but insufficient. What she means is that the architecture of your presence held. Desire can lean against architecture like that without fearing collapse. Desire wants to build where foundations do not lie. Remember the artisans who temper steel, heat, then cool, then heat again, until the inner lattice holds more than it did before. You have lived that tempering in choices too small to brag about and too consistent to ignore. Saying no so your yes could gain heft, finishing the chapter so your mind would not outsource purpose to attention, giving your body honest work so it would not petition strangers to tell it exists. The evidence of those choices is subtle, like the grain of wood in a handrail polished by decades of palms. She feels it the way fingertips know oak from veneer. And because the body trusts what hands trust, her desire does not need spectacle to begin. It needs only your untheatrical truth. Breathe, chosen one, and notice how even your inhale can be a liturgy. Draw air as if it were a vow renewed. I will be here without trying to take. I will be strong without needing to prove. I will be warm without demanding to be warmed. The exhale becomes an offering to the space you are in. She cannot name this ritual as she watches you from across the table, the hall, the sidewalk, but she receives it. Something in her unclenches. Something in her steps forward from the wings to center stage with no need to perform. That something is not a character. It is her essence. It is the self that only ever emerges in environments that refuse to punish truth. This is the secret choreography of first sight and next sight, and the 1,000 small sightings that turn a face into a presence. You keep choosing to be a place rather than a pose. The chosen ones are remembered not because they dazzle, but because they dignify. Your desire dignifies by refusing to devour. Your nearness dignifies by refusing to negotiate her boundaries into bargains. Your eyes dignify by holding steady until what is sacred has the courage to step forward and be named. In that naming, attraction stops behaving like a rumor and starts behaving like a covenant. She finds you desirable, not as an escape from herself, but as a return to herself in your company. Prepare then, not with tactics but with truth. Let your day be the studio where tonight's presence is rehearsed. Water drunk before thirst becomes desperate. Work honored before praise becomes necessary. Prayer kept before pressure becomes loud. When she sees you, she will feel the residue of those rehearsals. She will feel that you are not here to be filled by her attention but to overflow with your alignment. And in that overflow, desire will come to sit at your table as a guest with something to bless rather than as a beggar with something to take. Chosen one, guard your fire like a vintner guards a barrel room. Temperature steady, light managed, patience practiced until sweetness becomes inevitable. Energy that leaks becomes static. Energy that is stewarded becomes signal. Feminine women find you so desirable when they see you because your signal is unmistakable in a world that has learned to turn itself up rather than tune itself true. You are not loud, you are legible. You are not everywhere, you are exact. The body trusts exactness. It trusts the line that was measured before it was drawn, the step that was earned before it was taken, the word that was weighed before it was released. Your sexual energy carries that exactness, and so it reads as blessing rather than bait. Think of it as calligraphy rather than graffiti. Graffiti shouts to be seen. Calligraphy slows the hand until meaning is beautiful. Your hand moves like that through the moment. You place your attention in clean strokes, leaving white space where white space belongs, refusing to scribble over mystery just to say you were here. Mystery kept with reverence does not frustrate, it fertilizes. It gives desire a place to root that is not the shallow soil of novelty. She leans in, not to solve you, but to share a climate that helps her own essence grow. You have learned the difference between access and intimacy, and it shows. Access is proximity without permission. Intimacy is permission without pressure. When her eyes meet yours, they discover the absence of the old taxes. No demand to entertain, no fee paid in flattery, no toll collected in pieces of herself she will regret leaving behind. The absence is not empty. It is an ecosystem you have cultivated. Boundaries that mark where the sacred begins, kindness that knows where it must end, patience that refuses to counterfeit progress, humor that never hides a blade. In ecosystems like this, rare things come out of hiding. She feels it first as relief, and relief is desire's favorite door. Hold timing the way a maestro holds tempo. Rushing is how amateurs cosplay intensity. Patience is how craftsmen make it inevitable. Your patience is alive. It breathes, it watches. It listens for the note that says now and refuses the one that only says hurry. Women read this patience, not as hesitation, but as honor. The honor that refuses to harvest fruit on the day it blushed if one more day will make it sweet. Your sexual energy hums at that pitch of honor. It does not audition for the moment. It attends the moment until the moment is ready. When you finally take the step, it feels like a tide keeping an appointment with the moon. Let your eyes carry memory with accuracy. The last time she told a truth that trembled, your gaze steadied instead of swelling. The last time she used laughter to dodge the real, your smile softened until she could choose a straighter sentence. Your memory of those moments returns in micro gestures, the way your face brightens when her courage arrives, the way your breath deepens when her boundary speaks, the way you allow quiet to finish its work without rushing to fill it. Accuracy like this converts attraction from adrenaline into trust. Trust, once built, becomes the scaffolding on which desire can climb higher without wobble. Power is only as beautiful as the posture that holds it. You have practiced the posture that makes power a gift, chest open without aggression, spine tall without rigidity, palms ready to serve without trembling to seize. She reads this like a map of safe roads. It allows her to bring more terrain to the conversation, more wonder, more ache, more ambition, because she does not fear that any of it will be used as leverage against her. When the self does not have to lock its doors, every window can open. Windows opening is what longing sounds like in a soul that refuses to abandon dignity. Keep the small liturgies that make large moments clean. Show up when you said you would, and when you said you should. If you owe an amends, pay it in the same currency that incurred the debt. Clear words, steady tone, specific understanding. These are unglamorous habits, and they are the sap that keeps the tree alive between blossoms. She will not cite them when she explains, if she ever explains, why you are desirable when she sees you. She will simply say, "It feels right." Feel is not the absence of thought. It is the body registering truth faster than language can. Truth like this has texture. It leaves no residue, it leaves a glow. The glow is coherence. The residue is confusion. Your way leaves the glow. Let your hunger be trained. Untrained hunger bargains with everything it touches. Trained hunger bargains with nothing and blesses everything it can. You trained your hunger by giving it honest work. To protect what is vulnerable, to amplify what is worthy, to refuse what is counterfeit even when it would be easy. This training shows up as 1,000 small refusals. The joke that would score a point but take a piece, the glance that would collect a debt you do not want to owe, the hurry that would mistake motion for meaning. Every refusal adds a brick to the hearth. Every brick makes the heat safer, the light truer, the welcome deeper. She feels that welcome without being recruited. She finds herself near you without having been chased. And when the moment closes, close it like a craftsman blows dust from finished joinery. Do it with tenderness, clarity, and the kind of gratitude that is precise rather than effusive. Precision is belief put into words. Thank the courage you saw, the beauty you did not consume, the boundary that made nearness possible. Name your intention without annexing the future. Leave her with more oxygen than you found, more room inside her own chest, more faith that desire and dignity can occupy the same breath. The chosen ones are recognized by this aftermath. The air around them is cleaner. The paths behind them are clearer. The hearts that meet them are more whole, not less. So guard your fire, chosen one, and keep tuning your signal. When she sees you, she will hear it, and the hearing will feel like coming home to a house she did not know she had been building all along. Chosen one. Recognition is older than attraction. When she sees you, the first movement is not a rush but a remembering, the way a shoreline recognizes tide before foam appears. Her eyes settle because they have found a constant, and constants are rare in a world that changes to avoid being seen. You do not change to be chosen. You are chosen because you refuse to change what is true. Your sexual energy carries that refusal like a signature. It is not the voltage of performance, but the current of coherence, and coherence is the kindest thing a body can meet. Shoulders lower of their own accord. The breath relocates from the throat to the ribs. Her attention, which has been running all day, finally sits down and listens. You have trained your gaze to bless, not to bargain. A bargaining gaze tallies and takes. A blessing gaze recognizes and releases. When your eyes meet hers, you are not searching for leverage, you are searching for the sacred. Sacred is not a pedestal. Sacred is the portion of a person that must not be turned into a tool. The instant she feels that portion recognized rather than requisitioned, desire stops defending itself and starts speaking. It speaks by proximity, by tempo, by a softness that does not apologize for existing. You are not dragging her toward a conclusion. You are clearing the room so her truth can decide how close it wants to stand. You keep the kind of silence that builds trust. There is the silence that hides, the silence that withholds, and the silence that makes room. You practice the third. It is not a gap to be filled. It is a porch to be sat on. On that porch, the quick laugh that usually covers ache chooses honesty instead. On that porch, the answer rehearsed for strangers gives way to the story reserved for the few. You are not surprised by any of this. You shaped the conditions for it hours before you arrived, by protecting your attention from petty appetites, by keeping your word when nobody was checking, by making your strength answer to something larger than your mood. The feminine reads these preparations without a syllabus. She does not need you to list your disciplines. Her nervous system has already graded them. It gives you an A in gatheredness, and gatheredness is desirable because it promises no collapse. You have learned to let nearness remain a decision. Decision requires edges. The edges you keep are not fences to display power, but frames to display care. A frame proves the art matters. You do not blur the line between invitation and insistence. You allow approach to belong to her timing, and paradoxically, this is what accelerates it. Permission is fuel. She steps closer because distance is not being used against her. Your sexual energy remains bright, while your posture remains unhurried. Unhurried does not mean uncertain. It means the heat has found its hearth. Your presence operates like good architecture. It helps people breathe without calling attention to its own brilliance. You notice the draft in a conversation and close the window. You see a name slipping out of memory, and you go back to pick it up. You hear tempo getting feral, and you tap the table until rhythm returns. None of this is tactical charm. It is the way integrity behaves when it is applied to ordinary things. Desire trusts what has already been integrated into the ordinary. She trusts you, in other words, not because you are flawless, but because the strain between your values and your behavior is low. Low strain is the quietest magnet. When she sees you, her future self joins the room. Desire does this when it feels safe. It invites tomorrow to eavesdrop on today. She imagines, not in fantasy's fever, but in imagination's clarity, what it would be like for the steadiness to be present when the light is unflattering, when patience is expensive, when grief sits down without knocking. Your sexual energy can afford this audition because it is not a costume. Costumes are brilliant in spotlight and brittle in weather. What belongs to you belongs in all seasons. The body knows the difference. It does not need prophecy to predict whether heat will last. It only needs a minute's exposure to its source. You do not ask desire to prove itself. You ask it to be honest. Honest desire is quieter than spectacle and stronger than hype. It can wait a moment longer than it wants to, and that extra heartbeat is where reverence enters. Reverence is the one ingredient that keeps longing from becoming hunger's accomplice. You add it without announcement. You add it by standing a fraction farther back than flattery would, by speaking a fraction more slowly than ego would, by listening a fraction more deeply than impatience would. Fractions add up. The sum is the environment where a woman can want you without losing herself to the wanting. That is why she finds you so desirable when she sees you, because desire that does not threaten dignity is a miracle, and miracles draw crowds even when they make no sound. This is how chosen ones move through rooms, not with nets, but with names, not collecting attention, but correcting the air. You do not summon longing, you host it. You do not ignite frenzy, you kindle peace until it is warm enough for fire to mean something. In such warmth, the heart remembers its lines without being prompted. It does not audition. It arrives. Chosen one, depth is a rhythm, not a stunt. When she sees you, what draws her is the tempo you keep with truth. You do not rush beginnings to harvest outcomes. You bless beginnings so outcomes have somewhere honest to land. Timing is your quiet craft. You can feel when a moment is still curing, the way a mason feels mortar that looks dry but is not yet strong. You leave it to set. Leaving is not absence, it is stewardship. She registers this in the small mercies. Your refusal to escalate for entertainment, your willingness to pause where meaning is gathering, your ability to carry feeling without forcing form. Pauses like these are irresistible because they promise no whiplash. You treat attraction as a liturgy rather than a transaction. Liturgy is repetition with reverence. Transaction is repetition with exhaustion. In your hands, repetition becomes an anchor. Each greeting is fully a greeting, not an audition for the next thing. Each goodbye is a full closure, not a cliffhanger to guarantee a sequel. The muscle memory you build by closing circles gives the heart permission to open more fully at the next beginning. She is not guarding herself against half-finished business. Half-finished business is what makes longing limp. Your completions make it walk. Your sexual energy is not an instrument playing over the top of everything else. It is the baseline that keeps everything honest. Bass does not shout. It steadies. It lets the melody soar without losing the floor. You keep the floor by holding 3 simple vows: to tell the truth without cruelty, to protect pace without apology, to choose presence over performance. These vows are not slogans. They are the way your body stands, the way your voice lands, the way your eyes stay. She hears them with her skin. Skin hears promises faster than ears do and remembers them longer. You know how to be near without turning nearness into a verdict. A verdict announces ownership. An approach announces interest. Ownership collapses a person into a role. Interest invites the person to remain a person. Your approach is interested. It is precise without being invasive, warm without being wet, clear without being sharp. Precision shows up in questions that are doors, not drills. Warmth shows up in laughter that is bridge, not disguise. Clarity shows up in boundaries that are promises, not punishments. Under these conditions, her intelligence does not have to leave the room, so her desire can stay. Both stay. When both stay, the conversation becomes a place rather than a performance. You keep wonder available after knowledge arrives. Many men respond to familiarity by grasping, controlling what they finally understand so they do not have to face what they still do not. You respond with gratitude, which is attention partnered with humility. You notice small evolutions in her courage, the new ease in how she says no, the restored sparkle in a part of her that was tired last time. You name them with precision, and then you move on, letting the moment breathe instead of turning recognition into leverage. Recognition that is not leveraged becomes nourishment. Nourished souls lean forward of their own will. You are patient with thresholds because thresholds are holy. They are the places where 2 realities shake hands. You greet such places with eyes that do not flinch and with a body that does not argue with distance. If the threshold asks for a step, you step. If it asks for stillness, you bless stillness by not filling it with noise. The more you practice this, the less she confuses gentleness with uncertainty. Gentleness becomes what it always was, strength that has made peace with itself. Peace is hot, it just doesn't sweat. Your peace draws her because it does not compete with her fire. It gives it oxygen. Repair in your world is not a break in intimacy, but a fluent dialect of it. You do not treat misunderstanding like evidence against connection. You treat it as a call to craftsmanship. You sand the sharp edge from a phrase, tighten a loose expectation, rehang a door that was drafted to swing the wrong way. She watches the house grow more livable because of the way you fix what you find. Livable is not the enemy of passionate. It is the habitat where passion can take off its armor and stay. Rooms like that are why desire keeps showing up on time. You refuse strategy's cheap thrills in favor of reverence's slow wine. Strategy asks, what gets me more of this right now? Reverence asks, what protects the truth so we can have more of it later? You choose the second question, even when the first is easier. She can feel this choice in the temperature of your yes and the clarity of your no. Your yes is not a trap. Your no is not a test. They are both ways of saying the same word, integrity. Integrity is not stern, it is sweet, because it makes the future safe for wonder. This is preparation as practice, not pretense. You sharpen the unseen tools, attention, patience, restraint, gratitude, so what is seen can rest on something sturdy. Then when she sees you, what draws her is not a trick of lighting or an angle rehearsed in a mirror. It is the unmistakable relief of a presence that has already told itself the truth and can therefore tell the moment the truth without fear. The chosen ones do not win a room, they repair its trust. And where trust is repaired, desire does not have to shout to be heard. It simply steps forward, calm and undeniable, the way the sea returns to a shore that remembers its name. Chosen one, the way you hold mystery is not a trick of dimmed lights or withheld answers. It is the reverence of a man who understands ripening. There are fruits that bruise when hurried, songs that sour when shouted, doors that only open when the handle is patience. Feminine women find you so desirable when they see you because your sexual energy is not a net you cast into every passing moment. It is a tide that knows the moon. You reveal at the speed truth can bear. You conceal only what must be kept whole to be holy. In that balance, curiosity stops behaving like a thief and becomes a pilgrim. She leans closer not to take, but to witness. The closeness is not the product of tactics. It is the outcome of temperature. Warm enough to welcome, cool enough to think, alive enough to feel. Where most would fan sparks into spectacle, you cup them until they learn to be flame. You keep a liturgy of approach that dignifies both of you. Approach begins inside your ribs, on the breath that refuses to sell the moment for adrenaline. Your body does not perform hunger to manufacture chemistry. It keeps counsel with purpose and allows attraction to translate into attention rather than appetite. This is why her gaze holds when it finds you. She is not meeting a salesman of sensation. She is meeting a keeper of sense. Sense is sanctuary in a world that confuses noise with newness. In sanctuary, the self that has been performing all day sits down and tells the truth. Desire in such spaces becomes intelligence. It starts to choose with clarity what it once chased with panic. Your mystery has no sharp edges because it is not used to control. You do not turn silence into a cliff to make others dangle. You make it a porch where conversation can watch the horizon and not feel interrogated by the clock. A question asked by your eyes arrives like rain, not hail. A pause between your sentences is felt as permission, not punishment. The nervous system keeps a ledger of such mercies and pays you back in ease. Shoulders lower, jaw unlocks, breath returns to the belly. Ease is not the enemy of longing. It is its soil. The seed wants what the ground allows. You allow by refusing to hurry what could be beautiful if time were allowed to sculpt it. There is an architecture to the way you exit moments that makes the next entrance honest. You do not vanish and call it mystique, nor do you linger past wisdom and call it romance. You close circles with clean hands. Gratitude specific enough to be believed, boundaries clear enough to be honored, intentions simple enough to be trusted. Completion is the ethics of attraction. It teaches memory to bless rather than to brace. She will not recount what happened with the ache of whiplash. She will recall it with the coherence that makes a soul want to return. Return is not repetition when presence evolves. It is deepening. Desire loves deepening. It memorizes the way depth feels and seeks it again the way roots seek water. Your sexual energy is the bass line beneath this song, steady, tuned, insisting that everything above it keep time with what is true. When laughter arrives, you let it ring without letting it hide. When intensity rises, you direct it toward meaning and away from spectacle. When quiet descends, you refuse to mistake it for emptiness. Quiet is where reverence writes instructions on the inside of the ribcage. You read those instructions with the humility of a craftsman. Measure twice, cut once, ask before reaching, honor before holding. Craftsmen make heirlooms, not props. Heirlooms gather history without gathering harm. She senses this and brings more of herself out of storage. The attic of her being opens. Boxes labeled fragile are carried downstairs. Nothing breaks because nothing is rushed. You do not recruit her into your story as a supporting character. You invite her into a landscape where two protagonists can walk the same path without erasing their maps. Mystery in this landscape is topography, not manipulation. Hills to climb, shade to rest beneath, rivers to cross at the right fords. You do not call every hill a summit. You do not call every bend a detour. You name things as they are and let naming be a blessing that removes confusion without removing wonder. Wonder is not childishness here. It is craft sharpened by awe. Awe that has been sharpened stops reaching for shortcuts. It chooses reverent pace because it wants the view that only a well-earned height can grant. When she sees you again, she is not pulled by novelty's hook. She is drawn by resonance's hum. The hum is made from simple materials, word kept, gaze kind, touch governed, space honored, endings closed. None of this is glamorous in the way billboards are glamorous. All of it is irresistible in the way a fire is irresistible on a winter night. The chosen ones understand this. Mystery is not the performance of absence. It is the presence of meaning. Meaning held with care becomes magnetism you never have to advertise. She will not be able to explain why her feet know the direction yours are in. She will only know that her feet feel wise when they move that way. Chosen one, leadership is your quiet grammar, and grammar is how meaning travels without spilling. You do not lead by volume, you lead by order, the intangible arrangement of warmth, pace, and attention that tells a room what it may become. Feminine women find you so desirable when they see you because your sexual energy knows how to host. Hosting is not a performance of generous gestures, it is a protection of conditions. You protect the temperature where courage germinates. You protect the rhythm where honesty can breathe. You protect the edges where boundaries stand without needing to shout. Protected conditions birth clean connection. Clean connection is rare enough to be magnetic. Your listening is an architecture. It carries weight. People set things on it. Memories, ambitions, awkward half-formed prayers, and your attention does not buckle. Listening like this is not passive. It is muscular and discerning. It hears where a story needs more air, where a fear is disguising itself as a fact, where a hope is asking to be named so it can stop masquerading as a plan. You answer none of these places with performance. You answer them with presence, by letting your steadiness be the tool that shapes without cutting.